Hey everyone, Rich Bennett here. I'm excited to tell you about something we're doing for National Recovery Month. Here at Conversations with Rich Bennett, we're holding a special event called the Podathon for Recovery, 12 Days of Hope. For 12 consecutive days, we'll release a new episode dedicated to powerful conversations about addiction, recovery, and hope. And we're doing this to raise vital funds for an incredible nonprofit, Rage Against Addiction. They are on the front lines providing sober living homes, recovery coaching, and essential support to families. We believe recovery is a journey worth celebrating, and your support can make a tangible difference. Every donation, no matter the size, goes directly to them, helping to save lives and provide a second chance. So please join our mission. You can start donating right now. Simply go to conversationswithrichbennett.com and you'll see the donation thing right there so you can donate and help these women in recovery. Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch or fast pitch?
I never played softball. It's probably the least sexy part of organizing. That's okay. No. The truth is,
have you ever stopped to think about how much time you're really spending on your phone, your tablet, your laptop, or your computer, or even your TV? We live in a world where constant connection is the norm. But what's the cost of that connection? On today's episode, I'm joined by Mary Catherine Liscinski, a certified life coach who's on a mission to help us break free from the grip of digital addiction. You heard me right, digital addiction. Laugh at me if you will. We talk about addiction a lot. Digital addiction is crazy. She doesn't just throw around buzzwords. Mary brings real solutions and powerful insights about how too much screen time is rewiring our brains, draining our energy, and affecting our relationships, our focus, and even our self-worth. Her upcoming book dives deep into how screens are subtly but significantly changing us, and more importantly, how we can begin to reverse the damage. She's been a standout guest on multiple platforms, including the Dave Ellswick Show, where she's been praised for taking big ideas and making them click with real people. So if you ever felt burned out, foggy, disconnected, or just overwhelmed by the pace of the digital world, we're talking about the kind of stuff that doesn't go away with a quick detox or turning off your notifications. This conversation is for you. So turn down the noise, put your cell phone down, give yourself permission to unplug and lean in, because Mary's message is one we all, and I mean we all, need to hear right now. How you doing, Mary?
I'm doing great, Rich. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. This is something we've talked about in the past, but really haven't dived into it. And which I'm glad that you're on, so we can dive into it. But I want to before we really get into it, I want to know a little bit about you. What actually led you to become a certified life coach, and what specifically drew you to focus on digital addiction?
Well, first of all, I am also a licensed mental health counselor. So I was that first. I've been a licensed mental health counselor for 14 years, almost 14 years, and I have my own practice, and I wanted to start working more with families as a whole instead of individuals. I've had individual teenage clients, individual adult clients, and then I would bring in some aspects of family therapy into that treatment, but I wanted to start doing more family therapy. And so when I started down that path, I realized how much families were arguing about screen time in their homes. And so I thought, if I can really address this one issue, I could really make a big impact on how families are functioning and their relationships. And so that's what led me to get certified to treat digital addiction. And now I am a life coach, which allows me to coach parents or individual adults nationwide.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize about the therapist part. That's awesome. Well, and makes sense, I guess, because being a life coach, I guess it goes hand in hand, right?
It can. And I think that parent coaching is really what's needed in this particular issue. And I can, coach individual adults as well.
Right. All right. So with the digital addiction, explain to the listeners what exactly is digital addiction. How do we know if we or someone we love is actually struggling with it?
Well, it actually is a real diagnosis. The ICD-11, which primary care doctors use, has gaming disorder listed as 6C51.0. So that's there. And the diagnostic manual that licensed mental health counselors use, such as myself, it is almost there. Okay. In our current version, it is listed in the back, but I believe in our next version, the 6th version edition, we'll have a gaming disorder and or social media addiction disorder formally listed as well. So we are here. We are here already. So here are some symptoms of digital addiction. These might apply more to younger people, but definitely to adults as well. So withdrawing from other people, your teenager or a kid, they just want to go to their room and be by themselves on their screen. Too much, right? Anger, especially when you try to tell that teenager to get off their device and do their homework. If they have an explosion, that represents too strong of an attachment to that device, right?
Yeah.
Lower grades due to a lack of ability to focus. We can talk about how it negatively affects academic performance and learning abilities. Poor communication skills and less eye contact. If young people are not getting the practice they need, the actual time they need to converse with adults and with peers, those skills will not develop. And here's one of the saddest ones to me, Rich. I see so frequently now teenagers and young adults just walking around with that zombie face, right?
Yes.
Flat. It's not necessarily sad. And we have to realize that is not normal. That's not okay. That's not just, this new generation is like that. That is not okay.
No.
And that definitely, they have fewer interests. They're only interested in what is going to give them those dopamine hits, the social media, the video games. And so the other things that they used to enjoy, that does not give them the level of dopamine spike that is needed in order for them to feel it. How about this one? Feeling exhausted, but you can't sleep. Not only are we just staying up and getting less sleep, but then when we try to sleep, we can't.
Right.
Lack of motivation. Here's a big one. I kind of hate to bring this up, but that whole idea of the 25-year-old laying on the sofa in their parents' basement, lack of motivation. That can come from overuse or overexperience of dopamine, which can lead to dopamine depletion, which then leads to a lack of motivation. So it's not just that they've decided that they only want to play video games, but their brain chemistry and motivation level is so messed up. They don't have that get up and go to get out and do what they need to do. And of course, if someone seems stressed or depressed with no other clear apparent cause, I point it to social media and video games right away.
I don't know what it is. And unfortunately, you don't see it with just the younger generation. You even see it with people my age and even your age. For some reason, when it comes to social media, too many people think they can be a social media influencer, which is going to help them make a boatload of money, which is a load of crap.
Right.
And I'm sure you have experience with this. You've probably seen the numbers. How many of these so-called influencers actually are the anxiety or depression is off the charts, or even worse shit, you see a lot of them just end their own life.
Yes, it is sad. The CDC reported that for kids aged 10 to 14, the suicide rate tripled from the years 2007 to 2018.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is serious, serious stuff. And there's, we just have to point to social media. Last year, Politico magazine published an article. It was a survey of 1,400 mental health counselors like myself. And they asked them, what do they think is the main cause of this steep rise in anxiety and depression among young people? And the number one cause listed by far was social media.
I'm not surprised.
So here we have, the professionals who are directly working with these teens and kids who are in trouble, and they're identifying, here's where it's coming from.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, especially with social media, when we were going to school, there were bullies, but it was basically face to face.
Right.
With social media, you have more bullies out there. You have, I want to say you have more cowards as well, because you have a lot of keyboard warriors. They will say stuff hiding behind that keyboard, but they won't say it in person. And I had a guest of mine say it perfectly the other day. If you can't say it to somebody's face, then don't even put it online.
Right.
And you can sit there and you can, you can talk to kids and even some adults till you're blue in the face, and they just don't get it. They'll still stay on it. Is there a way? Because we know once they reach a certain age, we can't really take the phones or anything away. Is there a solution for all of this besides all the social media platforms shutting down?
Right. Well, there's kind of two things here. Number one, I take one approach when it's a family with young children, little bitties who don't have their own screens yet. That's one scenario. And then the other scenario is a family with teenagers who it's already arrived. But, the big thing is delay social media use for as long as possible. The good thing now is that there are a few different companies who are making phones specifically designed for teenagers that do not have the hardware capabilities of connecting to the internet.
Oh.
So they can have a screen or whatever, and it looks like an iPhone, whatever, but it can call and text, and you can, limit that to whatever degree you want to, but it does not give them that internet, which is so dangerous for them to have.
Oh, okay.
So there's 3 or 4 different companies that make those now.
A lot of people also think that screen time is mostly about social media. What other forms of digital exposure are flying under the radar, but still causing harm that a lot of people don't even know about? Right.
Well, video games now connect to the internet, and you can talk to strangers worldwide. Some parents don't know that, or even if they know that, they just have no idea of the dangers of letting their children and teenagers talk to strangers. Here's how I kind of illustrate that. It's easy to see how, parents do not allow their children to go spend the night at a stranger's house. You would never do that. That's just an automatic no. If I don't know these people, you're not going to spend the night at their house. But when you allow your child or teenager to have internet access in their bedroom, that is a virtual sleepover. You have no idea who they're talking to, what kind of situation they're in, or what kind of pressures they're feeling. And so many families, first of all, have had their teenager totally flip away from whatever values that their parents were trying to impart into them, and, trying to create that family culture, do a 180 flip away from that because of strangers they talk to. Or they connect to strangers and they think it's another 16-year-old, but it's actually a 35-year-old.
Yep.
And then they get kidnapped and they're gone. And it's just horrific.
Well, and the thing is, and now I'm going back sometime, remember AOL? AOL chat rooms, a lot of predators were in there.
Yes.
Disguising as teenagers. And you saw I think that's really when you started seeing a lot of that stuff on the rise, because a lot of these people, a lot of these teenagers, even young adults, were going to meet this so-called person for a date, and look what happens.
Right.
I mean, a lot of those people, a lot of those teenagers and young adults would be here today, but unfortunately they're not, because of the terrible things that happened.
Right. And now even on social media profiles, an adult can put up pictures of a beautiful young girl or a handsome 15-year-old boy and pretend, so it looks like there's a lot of evidence that they're a totally different person when there's not. And also, we can come back to this later, but besides social media, there's also AI and AI chat and those dangers as well. But the dangers of just allowing your children to have access to strangers is too great.
I'm glad you mentioned the pictures, because, and I saw this when my daughter was back in, actually may even been middle school, but you have young people posting these photos of themselves online on social media. And I don't understand it. Some of them, luckily, nothing has happened. But what is it? And I even see where, just to give an example, I'm not going to mention any names, but somebody I know, she's constantly posting pictures of herself like she's modeling or something. And her parents are praising it online.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you're so beautiful. And I was like,
no.
What the heck?
No.
So how do we educate the parents as well? Because some of the parents are feeding into it.
Right. They have such misplaced priorities and misplaced values, really, about what is the value of a human being. It's their soul. It's their inner character. And yes, we do see each other's physical bodies and we could admire beauty, but what really matters is what's on the inside. And if that is not emphasized when a child is young, and if it's emphasized that what's on the outside matters, you're setting that child or teenager up for a lifetime of not having their own identity and their own security. And they're always going to be searching for it outside of themselves with another human. And that never fulfills. We can never get that.
All right. So with what you do, because you're dealing with this all the time, what's one of the biggest struggles that you have when you're sitting there talking with a client, trying to get them off of digital addiction, whether it be gaming, social media, or even TV? Because let's face it, there's too much negative crap out there on TV.
Right. TV, too much screen time can be TV. Yes, that's true. Yeah. And so with TV, the time spent could be spent doing other things that are so much more healthy for us relationally and for development of young people, and the content of TV. So much of it is just worthless and negative and violence and all of those kinds of things that are bad just about TV as well. And we need to remember that too. It's not just social media and video games. It's TV taking us away from real life, so to speak.
Yeah.
Just the phrase of living in 3D instead of living in a 2D world of staring at your screen, which is 2D. So I think that people, need to wake up to the addictive properties. It's not just, oh, this is hard, or, oh, I can just try and I can manage it myself. Social media companies and video game platforms have owned up to hiring psychologists to teach them addictive properties, and then they build those properties into their platforms. So that has been confessed. That it's they're not just addictive by accident, they're addictive by design.
Interesting.
So for instance, let's take a little side note here and say, with substance addiction, drugs, alcohol, you take a drug, you get a dopamine spike, and then in a little bit it comes back down and you want another hit of the drug to get that dopamine level back up again. With video games, you have that same spike, but then that high dopamine level plateaus for as long as you're playing the game. And then when you get off the game 5 hours later, then it goes back down again. So you are just flooding your brain with dopamine, and that, of course, feels very good. And then you're not going to feel very good when you get off, which is what's leading to these meltdowns and just the desire to stay on all the time. And then again, when your brain is, noticing that your dopamine level is super high, it is going to downregulate and not produce enough dopamine. You're going to have dopamine depletion, which then leads to the low motivation, like I talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
And so these video games, it's been shown in brain scan research that video gamers and social media users, their brain pathways and brain processes are affected in the same way as drug addicts.
Wow.
So parents, most of them don't know that, and they need to know that to say, this is an addictive thing that I'm allowing my child to interact with, when a child's brain is not nearly as developed as it should be. I think that educating ourselves and children about brain science really helps them to understand what's going on here. So your dopamine levels and your serotonin levels, all of those feel-good hormones, there is a section of your brain called the limbic system. It is in the very center middle part of your brain. It is the emotional center of your brain. So that is where you're going to have anger, anxiety, fear, things like that come up. You're going to have your fight or flight, your excitement.
Mm-hmm.
All of those are occurring in your limbic system. There is another part of your brain called your prefrontal cortex, which is immediately behind your forehead. That area of your brain is responsible for higher level thinking, decision-making, problem-solving, conversation, self-control, self-regulation, all of those types of things. Now, the problem is those two areas of the brain don't really operate at the same time, okay? So if you are playing a video game, or if you are scrolling social media and you're in that, having those dopamine hits and really engaged, your limbic system is firing, and then your prefrontal cortex is not being engaged, or it's shut down. Or if you're very young, those connections between the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex, the neurons, the brain cells that can connect those two parts, are not going to be formed.
Right.
And so you're looking at a brain that is underdeveloped. Each part of the brain has specific purposes, but they also need to be integrated. An integrated brain is a healthy brain. The different parts are connected as well. And so the human brain is not fully developed until about age 26.
What?
That's true. It's true. And so the last part of the brain to develop is that part right behind your forehead, the prefrontal cortex, which again is the higher level thinking, self-control, things like that. And so that's one reason why teenagers are so impulsive. The part of their brain that's in charge of self-control isn't fully developed yet. So that to me means that our environment, what we expose our brains to or not, literally helps to shape how the brain physically grows or not.
So are there any studies out there to show, excuse me, to show, let's say in a year's time, how much effect just, being addicted to digital has on the brain development? Whether, like, if 1 year, for example, during COVID, these kids that were in school, they said, during COVID, they lost 3 years of social activity in 1 year or whatever.
Right.
So with digital addiction, are there any studies that show how much your brain is not fully, in other words, like, God, I'm having a hard time explaining this. So if I'm gaming for a year at the age of 13, how much time did I lose in my brain being fully developed? I guess that's an easier way to say it.
Okay. I'm not aware of any studies that are that specific as far as 1 year's worth of time. How much does that lose you developmentally?
Right.
But I will tell you what I do know. And that is, and I cannot remember right now who put this out. It may have been the American Academy of Pediatrics, but I actually don't think so. Anyway, what was shown, they did brain scans of children who spent more than the quote unquote recommended amount of time on screens. And what that showed was a decreased or lower amount of white matter in the brain. So it is affecting them. Now, how many years that equated to, I'm not sure, but it showed less white matter in the brain, which is, I believe that is a protective portion or something to, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering that specifically. But anyway, it's an important part of brain development to have white matter in the brain. And so they, said that if your child is spending more than a recommended amount of time, then the white matter is not developing as it should. Now, as long as we are talking about the recommended amount of time, I'll say this. The American Academy of Pediatrics has put out a chart of recommendations as far as ages and amount of time they think is okay, quote unquote, for screen time. However, I and other professionals who are working on this specifically think that those recommendations are too lenient. The evidence that we are seeing and what we are looking at, how damaging screen time is, we think that those amounts are too lenient. So I personally don't really focus on saying anything about X amount of time is okay or not. That's not really my thing. My thing is, social media is just so damaging altogether. We just need to delay it as long as possible. And we need to be spending time doing other things that are healthy for our brain. One thing that I have done that I think is unique is looking at how do we reverse the damage that has been caused by too much screen time. So if I can go into that a little bit.
Absolutely.
When I first got certified to treat digital addiction, I was very disappointed in that certification, in that it spent most of its time talking about the problems and the damage to the brain, which that's all good to know, yes. But then it was like treatment was an afterthought.
Huh?
And so, yes, I was shocked. I was like, what now, right? And so I began to self-educate. I began to read a lot of books about the subject, and they were mostly the same way. They talked all about the problems, and then they were like, so by the way, stop being on a screen so much. And I was like, well, that's not very helpful. So I was like, okay, I do know now a lot more specifically about the damage that's being done to our brains, to our relationships, to our mental health. What is it that reverses these damages? And so I, researched and read more and have come up with the keys to having a healthy brain, which can help to grow a healthy brain and reverse some of this damage that has been caused.
Oh, that's important, especially the reverse part.
Right. And so that's what I have put in my book. My book, about half of it is about the problems, because we do need to know about the addictive properties and the damages that are being done. So about half of it is about that, and about half of it is about how do we reverse this? How do we build a healthy brain?
Yeah. How do we do it?
So I think,
seriously, I mean, I'll admit I'm bad now with my job. Of course, I'm on the computer all day, and but when I'm on social media, most of the time I'm on under my business. TV, I don't watch as much anymore. But one of the things I've started doing is, and I haven't done this in so long, it's like if I go upstairs, I don't want to turn the TV on. I started doing a puzzle.
Nice.
A jigsaw puzzle.
Nice.
Yeah, I might quit that because my wife finished hers way before mine. But, but no, in all honesty, it felt so much better, even my daughter bought me an adult coloring book years ago, which I didn't know was a thing. And that's something else I want to get back to doing. But doing all these little things where it does not involve a screen in front of me, it just makes me feel so much better, and I'm able to sleep better at night.
Yes, for sure. So some of these keys that I have found would be spending time in nature. We can talk about all about how spending time outside is so good for us.
Yes.
The face-to-face interactions with peers, with friends, with family, and the attachment between children, teenagers, and parents. That attachment is critical for healthy human development.
Wait a minute. You said face-to-face, right?
Yes.
Now, when you say face-to-face, that means in person, not on your cell phone doing FaceTime or whatever, right?
Right. Not a video chat.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that because, you have some kids and even adults will be like, but I just video called them the other day. We were face-to-face.
No.
Okay.
All
right.
Young
go
people
ahead.
need to be corrected on that.
Yes.
Yes. Also sleep. Okay. If we're not sleeping well, we're all going to be grumpy the next day, right?
Yes.
So the importance of that, the importance of physical movement. Every age needs that, but especially for developing young ones, we need to be moving all the time, right? Being in the present moment, being mindful, being able to slow down. That is something we are way too much in a hurry, way too much about society is get ahead, and we need to slow down, right?
Yeah.
And then for many people, the aspect of faith. If we look at AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, if we are knowing that this is an addiction, AA puts a lot of importance on faith, but also about connections with peers, having a support group, and having a mentor, which in this case, as a coach, I can be a mentor or a sponsor, so to speak, but the importance of faith as well.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, especially with AA and even some running lips here, substance abuse addiction. There are support groups out there. Mm-hmm. Are there any support groups that you know of out there for digital addiction?
Not that I am aware of at all. As a matter of fact, I am one of very few people in the country who is certified to treat digital addiction.
Really?
Yes. So we are just getting off the ground. It's funny because I feel like we are too late and too early at the same time.
Uh-huh.
We're too late because the younger millennials and Gen Z have already experienced so much of this damage to their development and to their relationships and their mental health. At the same time, there's hope because we can reverse some of this. We can learn a lot of the things that we didn't learn.
Right.
The emotional intelligence skills, the executive functioning skills. We can talk about, poor Gen Z with the employment issues of, I talk to employers and they say how hard it is to employ Gen Z because they're having to teach them things that they didn't have to teach the older millennials. And
yes.
And so it's can just be a big mess.
Oh, I've talked to business owners about some of these people coming in for interviews. Mm-hmm. And some of them will just sit there and they'll be on their cell phone during the interview. Another one, people have come in their pajamas, and I'll never forget the one guy I had on. He said the one guy that came in for an interview brought his mother with him.
No way.
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
Aww.
And I think what it is, and you may be able to add a little bit to this too. I think a lot of it has to do with the parenting because, when you and I, when we were growing up, we had, the toys and everything that we could play with. We had things to help our minds, to help grow our brain.
Yes.
Nowadays, you have parents, and you'll even see daycares or whatever. They do the same thing. Mm-hmm. They have the TV on for the kids to watch.
Right.
Or worse yet, even toddlers have their own freaking tablets.
I know.
That play on.
It is so, so bad. Yes. Unfortunately, it's true that tablets and phones can be easy babysitters. And we just fell into that trap as fast as we could, right?
You know what? I don't think they're babysitters. I think they're baby cripplers.
There you go. I'm going to use that term now. It's true because people need to be educated about child development. And like you said, parents need to be parents. Children have to be raised. I can tell the difference in my practice between a teenager who has been raised versus a teenager who just grew up.
Yeah.
And that difference there is the parent involvement. And is parenting hard? Yes. But is it worth it? Absolutely. To have a
100%.
wonderful human being or multiple children, if you have multiple, that they can go out and be successful and have a positive impact on the world. And what people don't realize is, how do those qualities develop? It comes from a close attachment to parents. It comes from healthy brain development. Those executive functioning skills and emotional intelligence skills don't just happen by themselves. It's part of the brain. It's part of how you grow up. What I say is, like you said, Rich, the way we grew up that we would consider normal is actually critical for child development. And when they're missing these, then we end up with some of these, Gen Z who are suffering so much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad. I don't know when this all started, how it started, but I do believe we need to go old school again.
Yes.
Because all we're doing is you hear it all the time. Oh, the kids, they're the future. We're damaging the future.
Right.
If they're the future, we need to help them. We need to somehow, their brain's not fully developed until, normally 26, but God, you have some kids young adults that could be in their 30s and not fully developed yet because they're constantly gaming on social media.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
You mentioned something about how this all started. I'll tell you a little bit about that. Now,
okay.
So TV, has been around for quite a while, but I would think, I know that back in the day, parents, after their child had been on the TV for a while, they'd shoo them outside and then make them go outside and play with the neighbor children. They, kind of instinctively knew that, hey, you can't just watch TV, even if it was harmless cartoons or whatever, or a nice, wholesome family show. They're like, shoo, get out of here, go outside and play. Right?
I was told to go play in traffic. I mean, come on.
And then you had the advent of video games. But again, the early video games, you played by yourself, or you had a friend literally sitting next to you playing with you. And so you still had the draw to take you away from the video games because you played them by yourself. But now with video games being quote unquote interactive, and you can play with friends who are across town or play with a stranger who's around the world. So we have seen the negative effects of video games a little bit more long-term, especially in men who are addicted to video games. But talking about timelines, so the iPhone came out in 2007. Also, Facebook came out in 2007. And then in 2010, the front-facing camera for taking selfies came out. So when you look at the time period between 2010 and 2015, that's where the statistics show us that there was a very steep rise in depression and anxiety among children and teenagers. And that steep rise didn't happen in millennials, in Gen X, and in the baby boomers. That same rise didn't happen. So we were looking at, okay, what was specifically affecting those young children? What's different about them than it was about us? And yes, we were, as adults starting to use Facebook and iPhones, but we aren't as susceptible as they are in a certain sense. And we just kind of let them have it. Whereas we, work for a living during the day. And so it was a little bit different being 40 years old and getting your first iPhone versus being 14 years old and getting your first iPhone.
Yeah. Wow. 2007. I didn't realize that, which I guess, now that I think about it, because my daughter would have been in elementary school. And oh my God, I can't. The arguments we used to have, but my friends got this, my friends got that, And unfortunately, how kids are. If so and so doesn't have a cell phone or social media, you don't want to hang out with them because they're not cool like you are. Okay, this. I got to jump off my soapbox because I could get so riled up about this stuff. All right. With I want to get back to the parents here a minute.
Okay.
Because you'll have a lot of parents to say, well, I don't want to send my kids outside because you never know what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Granted,
Mm-hmm.
that could, even when we were growing up,
Mm-hmm.
things could happen.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the biggest challenge when you have parents that say that it's not safe for my kids to go outside? Some parents don't even find it safe to put their kids in recreational sports or to put them in the scouts or anything like that.
Right. Well, I understand those hesitations. I really do.
Yeah.
I would say, that's where parents, you need to do things with them. You need to go outside with them. You need to get two families together and say, we're going to play family soccer or whatever, and say, we're going to go on a hike together as a family. And again, that is changing your family culture. But like you said, we need to go old school. It's not, it's not just a good idea. It's like critical for us, right? And so, yes, it is going to take more time and effort, but that's what the kids need, because there are dangers out there. We don't want children, in certain situations by themselves. It's not safe anymore, which is very sad, but true. So yes, they need that outside. They need time. They need to play with friends, but they need a watchful adult nearby too.
Right.
So that's difficult, but again, that's where we are.
It's sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad. And again, you know what? I have to blame social media and TV for that, because people see the stuff and they believe it right away.
Right.
I mean, how many people actually rely on social media for their news?
Right.
Which is scary.
It is. It is, because everything's on there, and it's either created by a person saying something that's not true, or it's created by AI.
Yeah.
And
when did they become journalists?
Right. No, right.
You're listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. We'll be right back. I've got to tell you about something that's seriously impressive. My good friend Chris recently tried M-Sculpt Neo at Living Well Healthcare in Elkton, and the results, absolutely incredible. I'm talking visible muscle tone and fat reduction, all without stepping foot into a gym. M-Sculpt Neo is a non-invasive body contouring treatment that builds muscle and burns fat at the same time. It uses advanced technology to give you the equivalent of 20,000 crunches or squats in one session. You heard me right, 20,000. Living Well Healthcare in Elkton isn't just another wellness center. It's run by Dr. William Clifford, who's been helping people feel and move better for decades. If you're tired of working out without seeing results, or just want a kickstart to your fitness goals, this is the move. Check them out at livingwellhealthcareelkton.com. Again, that's livingwellhealthcareelkton.com. And tell them Rich and Chris sent you. I want to get into work for a minute. So people that rely on screens for work, what are some realistic changes that they can make without quitting their jobs or even going off the grid?
First of all, I would say in your personal life, is like as soon as you leave work, as soon as you get home, try to have the least amount of screen time possible. And that is going to give your brain a rest.
Right.
For people who have to be on screens at nighttime, you need to get some blue light blocking glasses.
Yes.
They really make a big difference. They really do. They help you. Okay, there you go.
Yep, I got mine.
Nice. They make a big difference in your ability to go to sleep at night. And so I think that, potentially, some, depending on what their job is, they might be able to get their employer to agree that, hey, I'm not going to be checking my email at 10 p.m. If
they
that
shouldn't have to.
Right. That's a modern phenomenon that could be potentially stopped. So just having conversations about your employer to say, do I have to be available 24/7 by phone or by email, or can I have time that's just for me? Right. I have a family, I have a spouse, I have weekends, right? Right. And so I think conversations, can be had.
I'm sorry, if an employer wants you to be available 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
That is ridiculous. And unfortunately, you do see a lot of employers that want that. They will not provide you with the phone or anything.
No.
But they want access. They want to have your cell phone number. See, I'm stepping down again. Mary Catherine, you're getting me riled up here.
Oh, I'm already riled up all the time. I'm so passionate about this, wanting to help individuals and help families to say, don't give up. There are, great families out there who have said, yes, we need to limit screen time in our home. We're trying this, and they try, and it just ends up in a big fight, and they stop and they fail, and then they just give up. And I'm saying, don't, no, let me come alongside you and help you with this. And it's worth it to do this. It's worth it to find another family who says, we're going to do the same thing. Our teenager isn't going to be on social media. So we're going to get our teenagers together face to face to interact and do activities, all these kinds of things. And I think if parents don't just talk about the problem, but talk about actually what can be done and how can we band together.
Yes.
That real change can happen. But it starts with individuals, and then it can spread to society as long as we have those conversations that it can be done. There is hope.
You talk about also putting, faith in, which would help you a lot. Right. But how do you, because to me, I don't know what it is, but lately you see a lot of people that they don't have faith anymore. Mm-hmm. How do you help those people? Because, and let's face it, a lot of them are addicted to all this digital stuff. Mm-hmm. And you even see the video games that pushing off, faith away and everything.
Right. Unfortunately, video games and social media really have downgraded our society in a moral sense. Video games, desensitizing us to violence, social media with the bullying that goes on that's just extreme that people can't get away from. And yes, I think that parents passing down their values, their morals to their children is such an important thing, not only for their children as individuals, but for our society as a whole. If we cannot say that, violence is bad, we are going down the wrong way fast, right?
Oh, yeah. And actually, it brings me to this too. So when it comes to substance addiction, alcohol addiction, all these other types of addictions, a lot of times it leads back to early childhood trauma. That's why, that's how the addiction came about. Do you think that's the same with digital addiction?
It can be, but I don't think that's as strong of a connection necessarily.
Okay.
But I do think that social media and to some extent video games can fulfill our need for interaction in a fake way, right? We feel like we're talking to these people, but we're actually just instant messaging. We're actually just using Snapchat. And so it feels like we're connecting, but we're really not. And that's the deceptive nature of it, which, we need, like we said, the literal face-to-face interactions in order to be healthy humans.
The way everything is advancing, because if you look at it, I mean, God, even when we were younger, there, computers weren't around. I remember computer class was the punch cards. But even when I was in the IT field, which was not that long ago, I mean, your laptops were huge.
Right.
They were the size of what computers are now. But you're seeing technology is advancing so quickly. You're seeing all these apps come out, even apps to say, oh, this will help with your anxiety, put this app on your phone so you can meditate. Are there some things that are good for digital media, whether it be TV, phones, or whatever? And we know the bad ones, but are there any actually good ones out there that people can use to help them I guess, get away from the other things.
Mm-hmm. I, wouldn't be able to, and I'm not really aware of specific ones that I would recommend. I would say that, like you said, technology is here to stay.
Yeah.
I think that we can use it as a tool in some ways. And it does allow us to stay connected in a sense to people that we probably wouldn't stay connected with otherwise, but we have to use that connection wisely. And that's where, again, as an adult, we can be a little bit wiser than a 15-year-old. Even though as adults, we can be addicted to social media scroll for sure and use those apps unwisely. But, it's difficult out there, I tell you.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Well, and I remember with our daughter, when we first allowed her to start using it, I think there are restrictions, and she was awarded like a certain amount of time to use it. I think that may be something that society has gotten away from too. If you want social media, you want to watch TV or whatever, then for the kids, award them that time, but stick to that time.
Right.
If they want to watch Bluey or whatever on TV. But I also think as adults, I think what we need to do is schedule the time that we're on it. Right.
We can put limits on ourselves. There are, I think, multiple apps out there that can turn off other apps at certain times of day, or just say, you're only going to be allowed X amount of minutes per 24-hour period on this app. And so there are those apps out there for adults, and that can be helpful for adults, somewhat, for teenagers as well. But I think mainly for adults, because teenagers can get around all of those blocks, and they figure it out. Even if your child is not tech savvy, I guarantee you they have at least one friend who is. And so parents who think, oh, I gave my son an iPhone, but we have all the blockers on it, we have all the restrictions, blah, 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 and we're monitoring and we're seeing all this stuff, they're just kidding themselves.
Well,
there's no way.
How many parents are actually asking their kids to teach them?
Right. Yes. And so they don't know. They readily admit they don't know, but they do those things to help themselves feel better when there's no way to keep up with seeing and knowing everything that your child is doing online. And so I say, instead of driving yourself crazy by trying to monitor, just step away from it and say, you're not going to use that. You're going to call your friends on a real telephone, and you're going to get together with them face to face and all of that.
Wait a minute. You mean you can actually talk to people on your telephone? You don't have to text them?
Right. You can actually talk. How about that?
That's another thing I don't understand is like, when did kids want to stop talking to people? It's constantly, I'll text them. No, call them.
Yeah. That's just, they don't have enough practice. I remember when I was very young, my mother, teaching me how to have telephone conversations. We would call up my aunt and practice talking, saying hello, saying a few things, being able to say goodbye, and and then being able to talk to companies or to talk to and make yourself an appointment, things like that. And so again, those things have to be taught and practiced. But yes, I'm coming across many young people who do not want to talk on the phone. They'll text all day, but it's like extreme anxiety to have a telephone conversation.
Oh, I'm even seeing adults like that too. And it's crazy. I don't understand it. Yeah. I mean, you even see it with the workforce.
Right.
It used to be, if you were sick, you would have to call up and talk to someone and tell them that you're not making it in today. Nowadays, you just text them.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I'm not feeling well. I'm sorry. If I'm the owner of that company and I can't hear that you're sick in your voice, a text ain't going to tell me.
Right.
You better call me, and you better sound like you're on your deathbed. I mean, that's just
talking about physical sickness. There are so many ways in which too much screen time damages our physical health and physical development. That people have no idea.
I'm glad you brought that up. Explain some of these physical, I want to say, not physical malfunctions, almost like this, because some people become disabled from them. So what are some of these problems that people are having physically?
Well, there are developmental problems in the developmental process, and then there are also other physical health problems that can develop later on. So as far as developmentally, for example, if a child is not moving around enough, if they're not running and playing and jumping, their vestibular system is not going to develop properly, which is your balance, your inner ear. That's your vestibular system, which also controls your arousal level. So if a child cannot regulate how alert or how sleepy they are, so to speak, their arousal level, I mean, that's a serious issue. And if you are sitting around all day and not physically moving your body, these young little bitty children are having issues with that. And again, that is something that is, pretty deep as far as learning about physical development. But I think it's necessary now for us to know those things with physical development, and that just being so critical for children to move and to learn how to move their bodies and to control their bodies. Listen to this, because, we spend such a small amount of time outdoors. But did you know that in the U.S., if you are a federal prisoner in a maximum security prison, you are guaranteed 2 hours of outside time every day.
Yeah, some people don't even want to go out for 5 minutes.
Right. I think the average amount of time that people spend outside is like just a few minutes a day.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievably terrible. So it's like, okay, I want my kid to have at least as much time as the federal prisoners. So go outside, right? And so those developmental issues, but then we have children and teenagers developing metabolic syndromes that used to not occur in younger people at all. So metabolic syndromes are things such as the high blood sugar, high blood pressure, midsection weight gain, type 2 diabetes, prediabetes. Those syndromes and issues used to not be affecting young people at all. And even in the older population, it was a very small percentage. And we see those metabolic issues exploding.
Yeah.
Now, with just being so sedentary. And we could be sedentary before, but social media and video games has just so much increased our amount of sedentary time that's what we're doing to our bodies. Now, another part of this is that video games, especially, the person playing the video game is going to be feeling a sense of enjoyment, of course, right? They're going to be having fun. They're enjoying themselves. They're having a little bit of that adrenaline rush. It's going to keep them playing.
Right.
So they're feeling a happy excitement. Their body is interpreting and internalizing danger, fear.
Oh.
It is turning your body's fight or flight system on. So your body is then going to be producing high levels of cortisol and fight or flight. And if you're sticking your body in that kind of a state for hours and hours every day, that high stress, we've already done a pretty good job of educating people about the effects of chronic stress, right?
Yeah.
But people aren't realizing they're stressed because they're having fun, but their body is interpreting physical danger.
And the parents don't realize that. They see them having fun and don't think it.
Yeah,
wow.
No. Even adults, I think, would just say, oh, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. This is adrenaline and this is great. But their body is interpreting danger, fight or flight, and those hormones are being produced in the body, which, again, long-term, not good at all.
Well, and the other thing is, too, and you're seeing this a lot, look how many kids are getting like tech neck.
Right.
Because they're constantly looking down. Even, I would say, even carpal tunnel syndrome.
Yes. Both of those are on the rise. Yes.
And I would not be surprised. There may not be studies out about this yet, but because of sitting down so long and no blood circulation, I wouldn't be surprised to see cancer on a rise in younger people.
Sure. I think cancer is on the rise. That goes to the Wi-Fi, putting your phone in your pocket. And there's studies about, lower sperm count in young men and lower testosterone levels. And I, hate to know when I see women who stick their phone in their bra, is that going to end up in breast cancer? I'm just like, I do own a phone, but I keep it away from my body.
Yeah. Man.
And those who sleep with it by their head.
Well, that's another thing. People don't. What's in a phone? How is a phone getting its power?
Right.
So a lithium battery.
Right. Battery. Mm-hmm.
And what happens with a lot of these lithium batteries?
Right.
They explode.
Right.
Or even caught. Well,
caught fire. Right.
Right. Because I was talking to a friend of mine who's a firefighter, and he was telling me some of these houses, and the fire was caused by a cell phone, or worse yet, they're charging their cell phone, and then when they unplug the cell phone, they still leave the charging cable plugged into the wall.
Yeah.
Which, if it's laying on carpet or whatever, that's creating.
Okay.
Yeah. And people don't think about that. Even adults.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So the battery is one thing, but the Wi-Fi waves, the internet capabilities, that's what's really creating the radiation that can be cancer causing. So that, again, if we see a huge rise in cancer, especially on specific parts of the body, that's not going to be good. No,
it's scary that everything we're seeing and the way we're going. It's just, God. Go ahead.
I was going to, if I could go back to something, and then maybe you won't forget what you were going to say.
Okay, go ahead.
With the video games and the rise in cortisol, another thing that video games are doing is video games train your brain to be distracted. Okay? So that's one reason for the rise in ADHD that we're seeing in young people these days. A psychiatrist is calling it acquired ADHD. So what we're seeing is middle schoolers or high schoolers who in their elementary school years had no evidence or no indication of ADHD behaviors or symptoms, and then all of a sudden now they are. And what's happening is the social media and video games train your brain to be distracted. And here's how that happens. Because you hear parents saying, my child is so distracted and so hyper and so wild, but then they can sit for hours and stare at their screen very quietly. And that's because the screen, especially video games, you are scanning that screen for any change or movement or noise. And so you're actually training your brain to pay attention to multiple things at once. Then when you go into a classroom or into a boardroom meeting, you're having a lot of trouble paying attention to one teacher who's not very engaging, right? So because you're going to hear this noise and see this out the window. And so it's creating a lot of ADHD issues, and that really needs to be explored before you just prescribe medication to a child, because that medication is not going to counteract the brain training that you're doing.
That's why now the military vets coming at me. But that's why a lot of times you're seeing these young people going into the military because they were playing these games on these computer games, thinking they know how to shoot and all that. And then when it comes, reality is very different from what you're seeing on the screen.
It is. Absolutely. But the screen is desensitizing. I'll tell you something, and then I would love to hear your perspective on this. So I had heard from a couple of different sources that the military would use video games to train their soldiers to be hypervigilant. I've heard that a couple of places. And then I also heard this is a doctor who was former military, told me that the military actually went to video game developers at, I believe it was the University of Michigan.
Okay.
And they asked them to develop a game to help desensitize their soldiers to killing people, because they said, we're having these young recruits who are having trouble pulling the trigger on a human. And so anyway, the video game developers made this video game for the military specifically. And then the developer said, hey, we can just market this to the public. And that ended up being, now, shoot, the name just escaped me.
Call of Duty?
Yes, Call of Duty. So that Call of Duty was first designed for the military to desensitize people. And so then we're letting our young men and even young women play it. Yeah. And like you said, it is very true that, the virtual world in video games is different from reality, but it is desensitizing to the reality. And young people are not realizing the consequences of real world actions, like, the real consequences of violence.
Yeah. It's now, granted, when I was in I think about the only video game around was TV tennis. But I mean, I have a couple takes on that. And I think, unfortunately, from what the reports I've seen, people I've talked to, the military is not as strict as it was when I went in. Okay. For example, in basic training, drill instructors cannot hit you. They can't even curse at you. They can't put their fingers in your face and all that. So when it comes time, if you're in that real life situation, let's say you're taken hostage, you don't know what to do. You're lost because you did not have that interaction where somebody was actually getting on you. I remember some of the training I did. They would grab you in the middle of the night, cover your face, and they would take you somewhere. You had no idea what was going on, but it was all part of the training. Right. So if it ever did happen in real life, you are ready. Right. And I think with the video games, that may be why, I don't know. It just, it's scary. Now, I do know that the technology in the military is out of this world. Right. I mean, think about it. You could be sitting here in the States and because of the drones and everything, you could take out somebody in another country. Right. But at the same time, if I'm running that thing here, the controls, and I do that and I take somebody out, it looks like a video game. So I'm not really there in person seeing it happen. If I was there in person seeing it happen, it's different on the mind. Right. Yes. As it should be. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that's why they're doing it, because of the technology they're getting to, and people won't think that it's real life, even though it is real life. Does that make sense? Right. The military, it's very tricky. Obviously, we need a military, and we need military personnel to be able to be hypervigilant and to be able to pull the trigger. But for regular civilians like me, I don't need to be hypervigilant. No. I don't need to be desensitized to violence. And so, it's... But you also need to be able to view everything around you and not just screen wide. Right. We learned this with 9/11. Right. Be aware of your surroundings. Right. Yes. All the time. That's true. I spoke at a conference one time, and I had a booth or a table, and next to me was a driving school. And they talked about how they can identify which teenagers play video games because they will just stare straight ahead. They will not tunnel vision. Scan. Yeah. They will not scan and look for other cars. And I'm like, that is very dangerous. Because as a car driver, you need to scan what's going on this side street coming in and watch out for cars doing the wrong thing. And going back to the military, you may have heard this recently came out from the CDC saying that 70% of young men are not eligible for the military because of their physical health issues. They are going back to those metabolic syndromes and various things. And to me, that's a national security issue. It is. That's scary. It is. It's very scary. But 71% not eligible is unreal. Well, and the sad thing is, and I don't know if it's still true, but I know it was not too long ago. If you joined the military and they did not give you what they promised, you were allowed to quit. I mean, no. When I remember when I went in during basic training, there was a guy scared to death. He tried everything possible to get out, even jumping out of a 3rd floor window. All he did was break his arm. He drank a bottle of whisk. He tried everything to get out, and they're like, "No, you're property of the government now." And it's sad. You should not be able to go in and say. I call it a lot of times people get, because of the gaming and everything, the way they were brought up. I call it the missing mommy syndrome.
Okay, right.
Because, and it's true. Right. They're not ready to. Right. They're not used to that social activity.
Right.
Being around other people that they don't know. And then here you are, you're leaving your couch or your bedroom. Next thing you know, you're getting off a bus, being yelled at to get on the yellow footsteps and everything. And you're scared to death. You don't have any idea what to do. And that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway,
they're not emotionally and mentally ready for that, that kind of environment, which again goes to those things have to be taught.
Yes.
By either taught or modeled by parents and adults.
Oh, you know what? I think I'm going to have you on again, but we're going to have to get some other people on and do a roundtable discussion on this.
That could be interesting.
It could be very interesting. I would love that. So what's one screen habit you think everyone should actually break today?
This might sound too simple, but might be hard for some people, is no screens at the table. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, those phones need to be gone.
I agree with you 110% there.
They need to be gone. That could be step one. If you yourself or your family is so steeped in electronics, it's a clear boundary, not necessarily easy, but it's very clear. And to say, we're going to talk with each other as a family, or we're going to have friends over, and those face-to-face conversations, that's, could be your first tiny step right there.
I'll never forget this. When my daughter was younger and we allowed her to have a cell phone, some of her friends were coming over. So I had a basket at the front door.
Nice.
And I thought, your cell phones had to go in the basket. Because one thing I didn't understand is they would sit around in the living room and text each other.
No.
You guys are right there. Talk. It's amazing how many of them stopped coming over.
Wow. That's so sad.
It's very sad.
Wow.
It just goes to show you that no social it's sad.
Wow. Well,
it's scary.
Good for you. You were a good parent in saying, hey,
I'll be honest with you. That's one of the things I do miss is sitting around because my wife, my daughter, and I, we would sit there, but my daughter's never hungry when we are now.
Oh,
so, which is weird. I shouldn't be doing this, but my wife and I will, when she gets home for dinner, we'll sit down and we'll watch either a cooking show or Duck Dynasty or Duck Family Treasure, because we love the fact that the Robertson family is, they always end up each show with a prayer and everything.
Yes.
And it just, we love it. And then the TV goes off.
Right. Yeah. That's the end of it. But that could be a good, wholesome family show to watch together.
Oh yeah. Then I'll go work on my jigsaw puzzle and then I'll get mad and leave because my wife gets done. All right. So something very important. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you.
Well,
the website and everything.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, you can get in touch with me the old fashioned way if you want to. You can call me on the phone.
I love it. God, I love that.
My phone number is 501-290-7132. Call me up and I'll see how I can help you, right? You have questions, you wonder things, just call me up, okay? If you're not ready to do that, I do have a website. It is lifewalkcoaching.com. So walk is WALK, lifewalkcoaching.com. You will not find me on social media. Okay. That's so funny. I was at a networking event one time and I was telling this lady what I did and she was, oh, that's so great. That's so needed. And she was like, do you make TikTok videos about it? And I was like, no. So if you ever see me on TikTok, you'll know it's not really me. Okay. It's an AI bot that's trying to pretend to be me.
Oh God.
So, but I have my phone number and my website. Feel free to reach out just with questions or whatever, and I'll see how I can help.
I finally heard that Southern drawl come out.
Thank you.
All right. So, Mary Catherine, for my last, actually, before I get to my last question, is there anything you would like to add?
I always just like to say, finally, I want to be an instiller of hope. Don't give up hope. We've talked about a lot of negative, depressing things, haven't we, Rich? Mm-hmm. And I can just get real depressed real fast thinking about all of these things. But there is hope. Even if you have failed in the past and have really, really struggled, get some help. I don't think there's, very few people who conquered a cocaine addiction all by themselves, right? That's almost unheard of. They had peer support. They had a mentor. They had a sponsor.
They had help some way or another.
If you're struggling by yourself, get some help. And I think it's so important to think about our own childhoods and how most of us had it pretty good, right? Those of us who were fortunate to have, a family and we played outside and we had friends that we got together with in person. So think back to that and say, I want that for my children. I want that for myself. That's what's good and healthy. And so it's worth it to get back to that. It really is.
I think I'm going to try and experiment.
Okay, tell me.
And I think all the listeners, I want you to try this as well.
Okay.
Wherever you live, drive around town and look to see how many like swing sets, sandboxes, or something like that you see in people's yards. Mm-hmm. I bet you'd be surprised that there's probably not a lot out there anymore. Right. I mean, you think about when we were growing up, I think every yard that had, if there were kids, almost every yard had a sandbox, a kiddie pool, something for the kid. Yeah, something for the kids to play on. And you do see them in parks, but how many of those parks do the kids go to by themselves?
Hopefully not any. You need a parent with you.
Well, nowadays. So,
right.
All right. So, Mary Catherine, for my last question, this is kind of different because this is something I started a while ago.
Okay.
I have 50 different questions here. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you every question.
All right.
But I have no idea what the question is going to be. So I need you to pick a number between 1 and 50. And I want to see how good you are at this because I've had a few people, the number they picked, the question just for somehow or another aligned with what we were talking about.
Okay. Did you say a number between 1 and 15?
1 and 50.
1 and 50. Okay. Well, let's see. I'll pick 32.
30. Ooh, okay. Why 32? Oh, that's your age. Okay.
No, I'm a little bit older.
I know.
I went down a little bit.
Oh.
So 32. What is it?
This could be a good one. In a way you could tie it to what we were talking about because it could help with your mental health and everything. Okay. If you could travel to any point in the if you could travel to any point in the future or past, when would you go and what would you hope to see or learn? It does align with what we were talking about.
It does. Going back to simpler times. Well, I wouldn't necessarily want to go too far back, but...
Or you can go into the future.
Right, or future. I'm not going to the future. Sorry. It'll come fast enough for me. So, I mean, as sort of cliche as this sounds, I would probably go back to the Little House on the Prairie days. I remember that reading that series growing up, and yes, it was on TV as well, but reading it, my parents, read it aloud to me, and I would want to go back there. There were problems back then. Yes. Life was hard in different ways. And I think I would rather tackle those problems than the problems I have to tackle.
I love that.
And so there was a second part to the question.
What would you hope to see or learn?
I would want to see a lot of really crystal clear lakes and springs. That might be a kind of a different kind of an answer, but I just like clean water. I like being around water. And they just drank directly from the river for them,
Yes.
a lot of times, or they had a well. But, I just think that'd be very beautiful and very peaceful. I love the outdoors. As far as what I would learn, I mean, there'd be so many things about just how to take care of yourself, right? And how to be a self-sustaining individual with growing your own food and canning and building your own house. I mean, I don't know what I would pick, but just any of those types of things, I think, would just be really neat.
I would love it.
Oh, yeah.
I would. I mean, learn how to farm and everything and enjoy nature.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, Little House on the Prairie, all the different animals and plants and everything they see. Granted, some of them would eat you, but still. It'd be fun.
Right.
Well, Mary Catherine, I want to thank you so much. It's been a true honor. Those of you listening, if you have any questions, you got Mary, tell everybody the phone number again.
It's 501-290-7132.
There's that Southern drawl again. In the tape. Give her a call and God, yes, please respond to this. You can leave a voicemail for me or even call me. This is something that we will be talking about again, and I definitely do want to do a roundtable on it. I think it's very important. So, Mary Catherine, thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Rich. I have thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with you, and hopefully all of you listeners out there have benefited and been encouraged.
Oh, I'm sure they have. Thank you for listening to the Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going. It takes a lot to put a podcast together, and my sponsors help out a lot, but I also have some supporters that actually help me when it comes to the editing software, the hosting, and so forth. There's a lot that goes into putting this together. So I want to thank them. And if you can, please visit their websites, visit their businesses, support them however you can. So please visit the following: Real Life Prosthetics, cutting edge solutions, restoring ability since 2001. Go to reallifeprosthetics.com. Full Circle Boards. Nobody does charcuterie like Full Circle Boards. Visit them at fullcircleboards.com. Sincerely Sawyer Photography. Live in the moment. They'll capture it. Visit them at sincerelysawyer.com.